acknowledge that this meeting is taking place in the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You may be seated. Welcome to City Council tonight. Our City Council meeting is being held in person in the Council chambers with members of Council, the Executive Management Team, and the City Clerk. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and physical distancing measures, some executive management, senior leadership, and city staff are available via video conference to answer questions if needed. Council chambers does remain closed to the public for the time being. First item on the Council agenda tonight is confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting held November 22nd, 2021 have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. Before we get to the budget tonight, we have an item under awards and recognition, and it is certainly one that is well deserved. City's marketing and communications team has been recognized with 3 2021 MarCom awards. These are awards that recognize outstanding achievement in the concept, direction, design, and production of marketing and communication materials and programs. There are over 6,000 entries submitted from dozens of countries, and the MarCom awards have evolved into one of the largest, most respected creative competitions in the world. 2021 MarCom awards recognize the City of Barrie with 3 awards that I wanted to present to Council and recognize our staff team, all of those who contributed to this remarkable win. The first award is for Strategic Communications, Crisis Communications Planning or Response. This was a platinum award for the COVID-19 communications response. The city's marketing and communications department have emerged as community leaders, in fact, leaders in the province in executing unprecedented marketing campaigns using all available channels and some creative new ones, I might add, to amplify public health messaging and align with the province's reopening plan. The team acted as a leader in the area by sharing all their assets with the communication teams across Simcoe County for use in their own communities. And at several points during the pandemic, I can tell you, our neighbors and other communities in our area, and in fact others around the province, used the same messaging and the same formats that were developed here at the City of Barrie. So I'm going to sort of hold these up. I know it's a sort of distant camera, so it's a beautiful frame certificate. I'll pass these around to members of Council. Maybe I'll just move through the other 2, and then I want to recognize the 2 members of our communications team who are on the call tonight. The second award was a gold award in strategic communications for crisis communications plan or response. And this is for the response to the Barrie tornado. In the days following the tornado, the city issued a number of media releases. Obviously, there was a lot of attention paid to those from across the country. The reach of all the media stories was over 300 million people. A dedicated website was created, information signs in the recovery area on the streets and online, of course, push notifications on the city's mobile app, extensive social media, and hard copy information sheets were all tools that were used to reach the impacted residents. And so for that effort, the city's communications team received this gold level award from MarCom. And the third one, last but not least, is an honorable mention in the video government category. This was for the official plan engagement. The marketing and communications team, in partnership with Development Services, worked with a local vendor to create a video to educate citizens about the city's official plan and encourage them to share their thoughts on the proposed plan. And you know, these things we know work when a lot of people respond. And we had 1,400 views, but an unprecedented degree of engagement on the official more than in other similar exercises in the past. Tonight with us we have Rebecca James Reed and Cherry Harris from Access Barrie and the communications team. I wanted to recognize Rebecca and Cherry for their leadership in the city's communications and thank them for the efforts. It's been a long duration crisis, COVID, and it was a short duration crisis with the tornado, but it required immediate response, and both required particular creativity. And so these are very, very well-deserved awards. And members of council, could you join with me in congratulating our staff team from Access Barrie and Communications. Speech. Ms. James Reed, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman and members of council. This truly was a full team effort, and I know Sherry and I feel really honored and proud of the work that our team has done. A really talented group of communications professionals who've worked tirelessly, particularly most proud of the COVID response, given that this is an international award. So we felt very pleased with that. And also when you think about all the ever-changing communications that was happening over the course of almost a weekly basis. And they weren't always popular communications things that we had to share in terms of health directives and guidelines. And our team just stepped in, and it was a lots of Friday nights and Saturdays as these changes were happening. And so this recognition is really special, and I'm really pleased and proud of our team. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you both again, and please convey council's congratulations to all the members of the team. You know, they say imitation's the sincerest form of flattery, and obviously the number of similar messages and use of that collateral, you call it, the messages and the videos and the information that was developed for COVID-19 really helped augment the work of the health unit and help get the message out to our residents. And on a personal level, I can tell you the response to the city's proactive communication after the tornado is really remarkable. It is part of the messaging we hear back. We hear about the cleanup. We hear about the efforts to try and assist with permits and all of the other issues that came up, and obviously the emergency services. But the fact that so much information was pushed out through so many different channels in such a short period of time really means a great deal. So thank you both very much. These are richly well-deserved awards, and thanks for being at council tonight and doing the work that you do. Okay. Always fun to start with an awards item. We will move on now to the budget, and the first item on the agenda tonight related to the budget is a deputation request that we've had from Mr. Michael Spears concerning motion 21G 279. That is the business plan, the Barrie Police Services Board portion of the business plan. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. In order to meet my legislative requirements under Section 17, Sub 3 of the Police Services Act, I will not participate while the deputation is occurring.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has Councillor Harvey's interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you very much. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and I'm sorry that I'm not there in person tonight. I'm COVID negative, but still battling a cold, so I kept my germs away. I'm going to also turn my camera and my mic off as per recommended by the Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has Councillor Natalie Harris's interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you. If we could bring Mr. Spears into the meeting. Mr. Spears, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
All right. Welcome to Barrie City Council, and in accordance with our procedural bylaw, I'll just remind you that a maximum of 5 minutes is permitted for your deputation tonight, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Lehman and members of council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening about the 2022 budget, specifically the portion being demanded by the Barrie Police Service. You've all heard me speak on this topic before. You know that I've been calling for a significant cut to the police budget, and you know that I am an abolitionist. But my ask of you tonight is to simply reallocate 10% of this year's police budget to fund upstream services that will have a positive impact on the people of Barrie. Along with that, I also ask you to commit to working with the community to develop a workable plan, respecting the reality of the Police Act, to defund the police even further in the years ahead. You see, policing, which is an outdated concept rooted in colonialism and racism, is not only a very expensive and substandard way to prevent crime, it's also a discriminatory way to maintain justice in our communities. It's proven that wage theft by employers is a much greater problem than any other forms of theft or robbery, but the latter two are always prioritized. And that's because even though misguided ideas, such as the theory of broken windows, have been debunked time and time again, police and their defenders still try to scare the public into believing that we need this so-called thin blue line to keep our society from sliding into chaos. The way we look at politics in this city is so very limiting, but it doesn't have to be that way. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine gave me a pin that has "Build Communities" written on it. I'm wearing it tonight, and I wear it as a reminder of the policies we need to prioritize in order to build and support a city where we take care of each other and keep each other safe. Care is at the heart of this belief. It's what community means to me. If you believe that community means having militarized agents of the state patrolling streets and protecting property at the expense of people, all while sucking up a quarter of the city's budget, then by all means, give the police everything they are asking for. But if you believe, like me, that there is a more hopeful and positive road to safety and security in our city, then we must start to transfer taxpayers' dollars away from the police. You can't talk about the existence of systemic problems and then do nothing to actually change the system. That is a complete failure of leadership. In previous deputations, I felt a sense of anger as I spoke. But as I was putting my thoughts together for this deputation, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and disappointment. We look to our leaders to do what is necessary when the moment demands it. Sadly, when it comes to creating and encouraging a system of public safety that truly responds to the needs of people, we haven't seen it from this council. I honestly cannot understand how you can simply take as gospel the idea that the police need nearly $60 million a year to keep us safe. It's extortion that simply wouldn't be tolerated if it came from other organizations or agencies. We need to get our priorities right.
Mr. Spears, I'll just caution you, that's a term for a criminal act.
Okay? We need to get our priorities right. Barrie should be a place where everybody is safe and supported, and where everyone has access to the services they need. Giving in to the police and their demands limits your ability to do this, and it makes us all less safe, because that money takes resources away from programs and services that can actually prevent crime. The bloated police budget means more people living rough this winter. It means fewer programs and services for youth and seniors. It means inadequate transit. It means delays to critical infrastructure projects. It means not being able to do everything that is required to address the climate emergency we're in right now. And by starving other services and resources of proper funding, the police help to create the conditions where inequality, hate, and racism can fester and grow. So as I see it, you have two choices before you. You can stick to the status quo and ignore the obvious need and desire to fundamentally change a broken system, or you can start to build the community that every person who calls Barrie home deserves. Last year, Mayor Lehman said that while he understood the demands of people asking for the police to be defunded, he couldn't support it without first having a plan in place to replace the services they currently provide. Sounds very pragmatic, but pragmatism at the expense of justice is folly. So I ask you tonight, can we count on you to bring together community partners in the weeks ahead to begin coming up with a plan? I think that's the least you could do. I'd like to end by reading a quote from sociologist Alex Vitale, who has done decades of research into policing and its negative effects on communities. Quote, "We cannot demand that the police get rid of those annoying homeless people in the park or the, quote, threatening young people on the corner, and simultaneously call for affordable housing and youth jobs, because the state is only offering the former and will deny us the latter every time. Yes, communities deserve protection from crime and even disorder, but we must always demand those without reliance on the coercion, violence, and humiliation that undergird our criminal justice system. The state may try to solve these problems through police power, but we should not encourage or reward such short-sighted, counterproductive, and unjust approaches. We should demand safety and security, but not at the hands of the police. In the end, they rarely provide either." Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr. Spears. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, Mr. Spears, for your deputation. I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit on your suggestion that we bring the community together, bring community partners together to come up with a plan. What does that look like to you, and what do you think the structure of something like that how that could function?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I'd like to, I'll leave it up to council and under leadership of Mayor Lehman to come up with the idea of exactly who should be a part of it. But I think it's critical for our politicians to deliver on their promises and show leadership. We heard lots of talk last year about the need to fund services that can help with crime prevention, and we heard it again this year. We saw reluctance from members of council to actually act. There was a positive opening when Mayor Lehman said we needed to have a plan in place first before we could consider moving money to upstream services. While I don't agree with waiting, since I think that injustice needs to be dealt with immediately, I do, I understand that line of thinking. And so, the opportunity is here to do that, to bring people together. Our neighbors lack housing, but we're not doing everything we can to help them. Our city, as I said, is in the middle of a climate emergency, but we're not doing what is necessary to try to stop it. And there's a popular belief that we shouldn't go back to quote normal, once we're through this pandemic. Of course, I agree with that 100%. And we've seen how inadequate our system is at, dealing with health crises like COVID. So as the city plans for a new reality post-pandemic, we need to be having these important conversations about how we're going to spend our, limited resources we have. And, bringing organizations and people together, to really examine the police budget and how that money could be better spent needs to be a key part, of the city's post-pandemic plan. In the very least, I think we need to have a conversation as a community about the police and whether or not they are actually serving the public good.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Spears. And I know you speak for a lot of people in the community, so I appreciate you being here.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Spears, for your deputation. Appreciate you being here tonight. We will move right into the committee reports. Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe you have the motions.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 is circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be received. This is the presentation concerning the long-range financial plan, timing of development and 10-year capital plan deferral options. Comments or questions? It is to be received. Okay, seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Any opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is the timing of development and 10-year capital deferral options. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of Section B? Any opposed? None. That carries unanimously. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is the long-range financial plan and financial policy framework update. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of Section C? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section D of the General Committee report dated November 20th, 2021 as circulated be received. This was with regards to the long-range financial plan and financial policy framework update, specifically the BHHI dividend. It's to be received. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? None. Carries unanimously. Planning Committee report, Deputy Mayor Ward from November 23rd.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Planning Committee report dated November 23rd, 2021 as circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the Planning Committee report dated November 23rd, 2021 as circulated be received. It's to receive the 3 public meetings that were held at Planning Committee last week. Comments or questions? 2 weeks ago, actually, Tuesday the 23rd. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried to be received. Section B, please. Oh, no, sorry, we're on to the General Committee report. So, General Committee report from the 29th.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated November 29th as circulated be received. It's to receive the report of the Finance and Corporate Services Committee and the City Building Committee. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? None? Carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the small business property tax subclass, County of Simcoe capital contributions, restoration of historic train engine 1531, the Municipal Heritage Register for 123 Toronto, 50 William, 9097 105 Cumberland, and the status update concerning consultation with Indigenous communities. These were the consent items at General Committee last week. Comments or questions on Section B? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of Section B. Is any opposed? None. Carries unanimously. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section C of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the Barrie Police Services Board component of the 2022 business plan. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. As per advice from the Integrity Commissioner, I will not vote on this portion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Has Councillor Harris's interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. In order to meet my legislative requirements under Section 17, Sub 3 of the Police Services Act, I will not participate in any discussion or vote on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Has Councillor Harvey's conflict been recorded or interest been recorded?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions on Section C, members of General Committee or members of Council? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? 1. That carries. I'm in favor as well. Thank you. And Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 as circulated be adopted. This is the balance of the 2022 business plan. And I understand there are a few amendments. These have been pre-circulated. Councillor Thompson? Actually, sorry, the order that I received them in, I think I had Councillors Harvey and McCann's first. Would you care to move that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. This is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gary Harvey. That motion 21G279 of the General Committee report dated November 29th, 2021 be amended by adding the following paragraphs. Section A, that the CAO provide a presentation to General Committee concerning the cost savings efficiencies and measures including specific amounts implemented by the city staff in 2020 and 2021. And number B, that starting in 2023, an annual list of cost-saving efficiencies and measures be included in the business plan and budget binders in a brochure-style format that identifies specific amounts, be listed by department, and the use of subheadings and written in plain language. And number C, that in addition to the annual reporting, a memo be provided to council coinciding with CEO's semi-annual update to council with status on departmental cost, savings, and efficiencies. Thanks.
It's moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Harvey. It's an amendment that motion 21G 279 in the General Committee Report dated November 29th be amended by adding the following paragraph. A, that the CAO provide a presentation to General Committee concerning cost-saving efficiencies and measures, including specific amounts implemented by city staff in 2020 and 2021. And B, that starting in 2023, an annual list of cost-saving efficiencies / measures be included in the business plan and budget binders in a brochure-style format that identifies specific amounts, be listed by department with use of subheadings and written in plain language. And C, that in addition to the annual reporting, a memo be provided to council coinciding with the CAO's semi-annual updates to council with status on departmental cost, savings, and efficiencies. Go ahead, Councillor McCain.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I won't go into a lot of great detail because I think that the amendment speaks for itself. But quite frankly, you know, we're looking at a time where we can find efficiencies, and I'd like to be a part of that process. And I think having 11 of us have eyes and ears open to all these efficiencies put by each department is only going to make this city stronger. And I would quite frankly like to be able to measure some of these efficiencies moving forward. So it's basically just more information for us to look at on a quarterly basis. I did have a conversation with senior staff members in finance, and supposedly there's been some amazing work already done. And for some reason, I don't know about it, and I don't think any of this council member knows about it. So number one would be a good point to maybe have senior staff brag a little bit about all the good work they're doing, right? Quite frankly, I can be direct and bold. And then moving forward, I'd like to see some of the efficiencies moving forward and just seeing how staff are striving to save tax dollars on a quarterly and yearly basis. And last but not least, I like to have in the binder in plain language, because people have certain different levels of understanding when it comes to business, when it comes to finance, when it comes to numbers, so that everybody, whether it be this council, whether it be residents, at any age, will understand that this city is striving to be efficient. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Others wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Harvey, and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I am very supportive of this. I guess it's almost 2 years now since CAO Prowse announced that Lean Six Sigma was going to be implemented in the city in order to find some efficiencies. And I agree with Councillor McCann. Some great work's gone on behind the scenes. It's just we haven't heard about a lot of the great stuff. And maybe it's time for staff to start boasting about all the great stuff that they've done. I know we've got some really good people that are certified all the way up to black belt, I believe, within the city. And I'd love to hear what they've done and what they look on doing as we move forward in implementing the strategies behind Lean Six Sigma.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. Through you to the mover of the motion. In the written form, you said semi-annual, and then you said in your verbal quarterly. I just wanted a clarification.
Nice catch. Mayor Lehman, you do have the page. It does say semi-annual. Yeah, you know, I guess I was discussing with the clerk today, and we did settle on a quarterly basis, so I'm not sure if that's some miscommunication through the clerk and I, or that's maybe miscommunication between the CAO, Wendy, and myself. So.
Sorry, so is the written version correct, or is there a change? Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. I do agree with the written motion. Semi-annual is more than enough. I think breaking it down to quarterly is a little much when it comes to reporting. And I know in a quick conversation I had with CAO Prowse, he tended to agree that quarterly is a little unrealistic.
Well, we all know I like to be realistic, so I guess we'll stick to semi-annually.
Councillor Thompson?
Perfect. Yeah, I was a little bit concerned with it being quarterly just because it kind of defeats the purpose. It's to have reporting every quarter, it would not be efficient. So We'd have to hire somebody.
Debatable, but okay, let's move on here
The
so we get out of here.
semi-annual is
And,
pretty good.
Most corporations do it quarterly, but yes.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Other comments on the amendment? Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And sort of building on Councillor Thompson's remarks, I was wondering how much work this is going to involve. I mean, is it already being done? It's not being reported to council, or would it require a lot more work on behalf of staff to present this to council?
CAO
Either
Prowse.
the budget and semi-annually.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mayor Lehman, through you to Deputy Mayor Ward. No, I think staff are quite content providing this information. Members of council are quite well aware that I present this information annually to members of council as part of the performance management discussion that we have regarding the executive management team. This year, the information was extensive, I think beyond 60-odd pages of improvements and efficiencies brought to the organization. My understanding from the intent here is to make that more broadly known, and certainly staff would welcome that opportunity on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the amendment? Anybody opposed? None? That carries. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Jim Harris. Sorry. Sorry. The motion 21G279, Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29th, 2021, be amended by adding the following paragraph. That the Director in IT or designate be granted delegated authority to execute any agreement required to be a verified app developer in App Store, including but not limited to the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, in support or to complement municipal services and or database, and I can speak to that.
Thank you very much. It's an amendment moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Jim Harris. That motion 21G279 of Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29th, 2021 be amended by adding the following paragraph. That the Director of Information Technology or designate be granted delegated authority to execute agreements required to be a verified app developer in app stores, including but not limited to Apple's App Store, Google Play Store, in support of or to complement municipal systems and or databases. Interesting amendment. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. It was brought to my attention by a staff member that there's nobody able to do this with some of the new apps that actually allow people to register for recreation and stuff like that. So giving the delegated authority to our IT department would allow them to, enter into exactly what the motion says to, complement our existing services and for our database.
All right. Thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions on this amendment? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Appreciate the sentiment of the amendment. I'm still a little bit confused. If I can gracefully through you, Councillor Thompson, to Mr. Nolan, if you have a microphone on you, could you describe in plain language what you can't do right now and what you are then able to do if this amendment passes?
Mr. Nolan, come on down. All right.
I'm not glad. That did kind of feel like the price is right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Don't go over though.
So the rec department is one of the ones in the front, but it does open up a lot of other features you can do on a phone. Natively on a phone, you have access to like calendars, scheduling items. So the voice features, you can say, hey, Google, schedule Zumba for me on Saturday and let it do some of those things. So you can start taking advantage of specific things on a device rather than going through just the website where you have to have, mouse and click or hunt and tap with your phone. So it's starting to enable some of those features. Not that we'll have those out of the gate. That's probably a lot forward looking, but this is just a step to get into that realm where we can start taking advantages of features available on devices and some of the cool things that Apple and Google are putting into the different devices too.
So it's not so much giving you permission to go make an app. It's giving you permission to enter into the functionalities with voice prompting and other services that the OS platforms enable.
Yeah, in order to access those, you need to have an app on the phone. Like, you can't just use a website. So in order to be on the phone, we want to make sure that we're a verified developer. So it's kind of the equivalent of having the blue check mark on Twitter.
Gotcha.
That, yes, this is the city. It's not somebody pretending to be the city and then gets on your phone and does weird things. This is us doing a publication or an application so that citizens will know that this is actually coming from the city of Barrie and not just the city of Barrie with an extra I or something like that. That's not us.
And you need this, and this delegate authority comes through a budget addition. It just seems, I like it. It just seems why, I'm wondering why it's getting added to a budget.
Well, we saw that in talking with the clerk, there's already some delegated authority language in there, and we kind of went back and forth of, do we already have the authority to do this? And we weren't 100% sure. And then, do we want to just do a staff report in a few weeks to come out? And then we thought that it's actually a good spot for it to live in the budget with all the other delegated authorities. So we thought we'd try this opportunity to get it in now.
Perfect, that's timely. And then my last one is this addition, if this passes successfully, there's no increase or decrease to the budget. There's no impact beyond just direction, empowerment of staff?
Yeah, I mean, any fees would be minimal. I think it's like between $100 to $300, depending on which store. And most of them, as government or not-for-profit agencies, as long as you don't charge for your app, they usually waive all the fees anyway. So I don't expect that this will cost us any money.
Thanks, Councilor Morales. Any other questions or comments on this amendment? Thanks for bringing it forward, Councilor Thompson. Call the question. Those in favor? Is anybody opposed to this amendment? None. That carries unanimously. Councilor Thompson, I think you have a second one.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Moved by myself. This one is second by Jim Harris.
Harris. Different person entirely.
That motion 21G 279, Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29, 2021, be amended by deleting paragraph 5 and replacing it with the following. That intake form 647 be amended to reflect that $65,000 be allocated to conduct a pilot project in conjunction with the BIA to assist with BIA sidewalk cleaning during the 2022-2023 winter maintenance season, with an increase to the tax levy of $65,000, and that staff in the operation department report back to council by May 31st, 2023 to discuss the results of the pilot.
All right, we have an amendment moved by Councilor Thompson, seconded by Councilor Harris, that motion 21G 279 of Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29th be amended by deleting paragraph 5D, replacing it with the following, that intake form 647 be amended to reflect $65,000 be allocated to conduct a pilot program in conjunction with the BIA to assist with the BIA sidewalk clearing during the 2022-2023 winter maintenance season, with an increase to the tax levy of $65,000, and that staff in the Ops Department report back to Council by May 31st, 2023 to discuss the results of the pilot. Go ahead, Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lynn. So after last week's meeting and listening to members around the table, and when we left, I was speaking with Councilor Jim Harris, and he sits on the BIA, and conversation with Councilor Morales as well. I was alarmed by the cost in the original intake form, that I didn't believe that it would achieve the service or the BIA wanted the service of that amount of money. So through the week, I worked with staff who were very helpful in listening to some of the comments. We had come up with a solution to basically, because of the operation hours of the BIA, that it would allow for offset hours where they could make one pass per snowfall to remove the bulk of the snow in the downtown BIA, and maintaining the current bylaw where store owners will still need to maintain their sidewalk during the day in operation hours, because it's very difficult for snow equipment to, perform their task when people are out and about. So I thought this was a great opportunity to see if we could assist the BIA and provide this service to help the businesses. And, there was a comment made about, accessibility and all that stuff. So I just didn't want this to go. I sit on the accessibility committee, and I know that we spend an awful lot of money on snow lifts to allow people with mobility issues and stuff to exit a car to the store. So we are performing services and with the accessibility in mind of the downtown for our residents. So that's why I brought this forward.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thompson. Comments? Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. Maybe just a bit to echo and then also to give credit to Councillor Thompson. He did a great deal of work this week across a variety of fronts to come to this, what I think is a really a good compromise, and it also provides a level of service, and Councillor Morales would be able to confirm, because I know he's worked with the BA members as well, that this level of service that was being proposed originally is beyond what they had really expected, and they believe that this would be a much more reasonable amount. And they recognize too also, and I think something else that really helped last week was Deputy Mayor Ward mentioning his experience as a BA member and the expectation about keeping your shop clean throughout the day out front, whether that be winter season or summer season when you've got other things, sand and other things that accumulate up front. So I think it's a really great compromise. So thank you, Councillor Thompson, for all the hard work on this, and hopefully people will support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman. Just an opportunity if staff wanted to speak to it, but I did want to thank Mr. Fryery. He did give me some more information about this, so very happy to support it, and thanks to those councillors that put in the work to bring something back. I did learn through this too, because I know that we talked about the intake form and that's referenced, but my understanding is this pilot approach means a little bit different scope, and of course with that price tag, we're not actually purchasing the additional machines and adding additional routes. So I would just wanted to be clear in acknowledging, because I know I was interested in whether those route times would improve in the Georgian Mall area that was noted in the intake form. So I appreciate that this is scoped down, respect that and the cost coming in. So I did want to thank staff for bringing something back, and looking forward to, should this pass, actually hearing overall how some of our general and servicing through snow removal get managed across the city.
Thanks very much, Councillor Kungle. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I know it's been said, but I just want to echo kudos to Councillor Thompson. It's very refreshing to have a member of council that has an idea what something should cost and what kind of package option of package you should get. And you traditionally on councils, at least here, we haven't had somebody with a kind of construction background, and you need to get the compliment, Councillor Thompson. A lot of, like, personally, the old member that we got, I would have been like, great, I trust staff. But I think you asked better questions of the BI. What do you exactly need? And you got us to a better number that's more palatable to everybody. So that skill set is not often found on councils, but it has been proven valuable, not just today, but I know in the past with engineering, with curbs, with sidewalks, with different designs. So let's add that to Councillor McCann's efficiency brochure every 2 weeks, because that's how you get to designing a better city. So thanks again, Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Other comments? Okay, I'm just going to call the question then. I'm certainly supportive of this too. It's a good compromise. Those in favor of the amendment? Unanimous. That carries. Thanks for that. Okay, I do not have any other amendments that have been submitted to the clerk for the 2022 business plan. Are there any that members wish to introduce? Okay, then I will call for questions on, or comments, final comments on the budget before I call the question. Does anybody wish to make any? Councillor Kungle.
Just want to say, was happy to see we didn't have to use Tuesday and Wednesday night to get through this, and that was in large part, I think, due some great work behind the scenes and some communication across council members, but also wanted to, and I think it has been done, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to acknowledge staff and the finance team and others that brought this forward, and the leadership of staff moving us through the workshop on the weekend, and then allowing us to focus it on those budget binders. So great process. My compliments to staff, and your responsiveness, especially in getting us very short turnaround times on many questions in good detail. So I feel good about where we've landed in process, and I do want to acknowledge that's in large part due to staff and the collaboration amongst members of council.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Any other comments? Okay, traditionally I do a bit of a summing up at this point, so here's what I wanted to cover. No service cuts in this year's budget, and that was a difficult challenge to try and bring forward a reasonable tax increase under the rate of inflation without cutting services. Credit to staff for bringing forward a budget that was able to maintain the city service levels, and in fact, Council, if we wind the clock back a week, was presented with 4 potential new services. We chose to proceed with 2 of them, and arguably maybe 2.5, given the amendment tonight, for clearing some sidewalks downtown starting next winter. Those 2 new services that were approved: additional bylaw enforcement on the issue of property standards, second suites, and so forth, that has been a concern. And something we didn't really talk too much about is the fact that this year the library will open in Hawley. Last year we approved the funding to renovate the space for it. This year we have approved a library board budget that includes operating that branch library, and I don't think it should be overlooked, because if somebody says, what are the improvements you've made to the city this year, we will be able to say in a matter of a few months that we've added our 3rd library in an area of the city that's asked for one for many years. So that, I think, is good news. We're also restoring the Georgian Theatre funding. Should we be able to open that? I know that has been critically important to our arts and culture groups in Barrie, that when the time comes, coming out of COVID, when the opportunity arises, and it's almost there now, hopefully, knock wood, council's restored the funding, and that is critical. You can't have a city of our size without a theater that allows our local groups to be able to perform and receive audiences from around the region. But I really did want to note a major focus on infrastructure, as always. Expanding the capacity of roads. You know, for years we've been behind the 8 ball in the south end. Everybody's been frustrated by the traffic as the city has grown. 2 very important projects this year: Mapleview East out to Yonge, finishing over the next 2 years, that stretch from Country Lane to Yonge, and Big Bay Point from Huronia to Bayview. But as well, by restoring the dedicated infrastructure levy, which is a tough thing that we ask of our residents, but it's the number one thing that is asked of us on the capital side. Please take better care of what you've got. And that is what the DIRF allows us to do. And this year there's 5 kilometers of roads that will be replaced entirely, another 6.3 that are going to be resurfaced, and a series of other smaller resurfacing projects as well. But the piece I really wanted to mention tonight, because we haven't talked about it at all, and was touched on in the deputation, and it's been asked of me many times in the community. There's I think, an assumption that as the city focuses on the issues that we talk about a lot and the services we support, that we're not also doing more on housing, doing more on community and social services. And I think it's a false statement to say that we do one and we ignore the other. This year's budget, the County of Simcoe request, and I would direct people to the distant page 263 and 264 of the budget binder, which outlines the way the City of Barrie is contributing to the regional effort, county-wide, to build more housing to support those in need and to provide the services that are needed for those in our community experiencing homelessness. It's a total of $40 million this year. It's an enormous increase over the past several years. 13.9 in social and community services funding, 17.2 million in capital. And that is a multiple of what we were spending just a few years ago. And Page 264 in the binder outlines where that's going, and the major pieces are affordable housing, and affordable housing, top three. And while those projects are part of a county system, and the day will come where one is in Barrie, we've heard the details of that project. Next year, maybe the year after, we'll start to see that come into Barrie's budget. At the moment, we're contributing to the region's solution to create more capacity to help people who are experiencing homelessness. And I can tell you from Human Services and the other members of Barrie City Council that sit on Human Services Committee, we're funding community paramedicine as part of our budget this year. It may be indirect, it may not get much attention, but that's helping people at home so they don't end up having to call 911. It's helping the frequent callers to paramedic services. And very much through the police budget, the community safety and well-being plan, the philosophy of trying to help people before they end up having to call 911 is a service change that we are helping to fund. And again, it's very important that we be able to answer our residents who are asking us, what are you doing? What are you doing on housing? What are you doing on the challenges we're seeing in our community? The answers are in the budget binder, but sometimes they're a little deeper in there and they don't get as much attention as some of the things we talk about during the debate. So I wanted to raise that, but overall, I've been asked a number of times in the last 24 hours around the percentage increase and is it reasonable and is it not? Is it reasonable is always in the eye of the beholder. All of our residents probably have a different take, subtly different take on it. For some, it'll be reasonable. For others, no increase is reasonable. But the fact is, we are able, as we are every year, I believe, to defend our choices and show people what they're getting for their money. And the greatest strength of the budget process, and this is entirely due to our staff, is that we now have this binder of information where we can show every dollar and every improvement in service and every that needs improving, and a very real and honest assessment of the city's financial condition. So I want to thank staff. We get to this point every year. Council is very much the tip of an iceberg. We are the last 2 or 3% of the process. This is my 15th budget. And every year, staff and council have moved a little closer together. And that's progress. And I appreciate that. So with that, I'll call the question on the budget as amended. Those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None? That carries unanimously. I appreciate the unanimous vote on the budget, members of council, at least that section of it, the bulk of it. Okay, that completes the committee reports tonight. We are now at inquiries. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any inquiries of staff?
I have none.
Members of council. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I guess I have a question for Mr. Dave Ferrari, just concerning the winter maintenance program.
Your worship and members of council, I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrari. So through you, Mayor Lehman, if I could just ask directly. Mr. Ferrari, you gave out an email this morning describing that you're having maybe some issues over in the Ward 10, Ward 9 areas where the tornado hit, and because of maybe contractors or maybe insurance companies, that development and construction is not moving as fast as everybody would like it to move. And as a result of that, you're having bins in people's driveways and people parking on the road. And I believe last week or the week before, Mayor Lehman and I think staff basically gave a pass that people could park on the streets there, just because of obviously the stress and frustration of renovations. And I see that you'd like some help from the residents in the tornado areas, and maybe I could just give a little synopsis, and maybe you could fill in some blanks, and maybe you could answer how we are going to be communicating this through our channels. So if I can maybe just give a synopsis. Right now, you're looking for residents who are parking on the streets. Yes, they can still park, but they'd like to meet us halfway and to stagger your parking, so therefore you could have emergency emergency vehicles being able to go down the road. If they park side by side, like on the north side and the south side, you can't get an emergency truck in there, like a fire truck. You can't get the Sanders in there, and that makes it not safe for the whole community. That's number one. Number two, you're looking for residents to maybe find alternative areas to park. I say good luck to that one. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think we can ask. Number three, you're asking for residents to get a pass from the city of Barrie. You sent a notice out there, I believe, this weekend, and basically letting the residents know exactly what you said in your email, exactly what I'm talking about right now, and that number is on the notice. I feel like I'm forgetting maybe one or two. If you can maybe fill the blanks in, please.
Mr. Ferrari.
Your Worship and members of council, I believe you hit most of them. One of them that we would ask residents to do is perhaps not park in front of their house every single night, maybe move it around a little bit. What happens, and you'll end up getting a pile of snow right in front of your house, and it will remain there. So we don't want that. As you know that, as we get more and more snow, snow storage is crucial. The roads get narrower and narrower. At some point we won't be able to get a snowplow up or a sander. And if they can't get up, it should be noted that a fire truck will not get up as well. So that's the last thing we want to have happen. With regard to messaging, our friends in bylaw this weekend were out Friday and Saturday. They hand-delivered those notices that we're speaking of, and they were given to houses that would have a bin or a sea can in the driveway or the front yard. So people who were visibly getting renovations or work done on their houses. So this isn't for everybody. It's just to help out those certain homes that are struggling with finding parking. And to your point, we know that it's going to be tough for people to get alternate arrangements for parking. But certainly, if much like the tornado, if we all work together, hopefully we'll get through the winter and everybody will get their houses fixed up as fast as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrari. If I can move to one more question. Just communicate, so that's great what we've done, but moving forward, are we talking with the press? Are we talking with our own communications team? No, or what kind of communication moving forward are you proposing?
Your Worship and members of council, I would be happy to follow up with Access Barrie with any additional messaging that may be required. As mentioned, we sort of avoided some of that because we just wanted this strictly for folks who were in need of some assistance due to renovations or work on their houses. We didn't necessarily want to open it up to everybody because once you do that, you get more and more cars in the street and it makes it more and more difficult for the snowplows to get around.
Well, I'm glad you said that last part because I was already communicating with some of the press, so I will hold off on that if you think this is the safest way for the community. Thank you, Mr. Barrie.
Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions of staff. The first is, it was great to see in a memo, I believe by Staff and Recreation and Culture Facilities, around our Circle at the Center and Centennial Ice Service being prepared to be ready this December for residents to enjoy. My question is usually around the same time we start getting asked by residents about the process to start your own hockey rinks in the neighborhood. And last year was phenomenal. I think we had over 27 ice rinks that really staff supported prepping and residents stepped up and managed that and had a lovely difference to residents being able to get out and enjoy play. Does that process happen through December, or will that be something that opens up for residents to participate in January? I guess that would be to Ms. McAlpine, if appropriate.
Yes, Ms. McAlpine.
Through Mayor Lehman to Councillor Kungle, it's actually Priorities group in operations that deals with the ice rinks that are maintained by residents, and there is information on the city's website on signing up for that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Friary, go ahead.
Your Worship and members of council, Ms. McAlpine's absolutely right. If folks would like to go to the City of Barrie website and just search through volunteer ice rinks, there's actually a form that they have to fill out. And once we receive your request and your location, staff would typically reach out to you at that time and walk you through how to start a rink. We would give the residents assistance in starting the rink up. With any luck, we'll get some cold weather here soon. I seen a few of the rinks or a few of the snowbanks being pushed back. So we should be starting December, January for sure.
That's fantastic. And just a quick follow-up, if I may, Mr. Fryery. Are those set locations based on water access, or if a resident had a new location that they were interested in sponsoring, is that possible, or are there dedicated areas that staff only support across the city around where those locations are in neighborhoods?
Your worship and members of council, it absolutely is dependent on having access to water. So we do have a list of parks with water access. So if you have an inquiry or you would like to have a rink in your area, please just drop us a note. We can tell you if water is available there. If you would like it added to a list of possible future requests, it's something that we have to budget for. Obviously, it is quite expensive to put in a water hydrant, water valves, backflow preventers, etc. It can be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So we need a little bit of notice for those. But if they'd like to contact us about current locations and their availability, we'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you. My other question on a different topic has to do with residents actually, just before council started, noticing some media and activity around schools around anti-vax protests and or engagement that were happening. I believe 2 schools in our area had experienced this. I'm getting questions, I'm not sure if other members of council are, if we've had questions directly into the city about what role the municipality does or does not have around that. I know there's kind of scopes of an individual's rights around how they engage with individuals, but not being able to, I believe, hinder drop-offs of children at school and or access school property. I didn't know if members of staff could speak about if residents do see this occurring at a school or nearby a school area, is there an action that they should be taking or a contact that they should reach out to?
Ms. McAlpine?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Through you to Councillor Kungle. Certainly if the school board reaches out to Barrie Police, they can deal with activities that are occurring on property if they're not peaceful or if they're impeding traffic. So I would encourage the school board or the school to reach out to Barrie Police if they're experiencing this.
And just in follow-up, if I may, so if the activity is happening on city sidewalks or city property and it is peacefully done, my understanding is that is permitted by law.
Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Kungle, yes, that would be permitted if someone is not obstructing the sidewalk and the activities are peaceful in nature, as long as they are also following any health protocols that might take place at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Any other inquiries of staff? Okay, seeing none. Announcements, Deputy Mayor Ward.
No, we've got a bit of time, so I'm just going to say that last week, Councillor Thompson asked me if I still had the first budget I ever dealt with, and I do. The 2000 city budget.
The 1893 city budget. I didn't realize copies still existed.
He actually called me an archivist, which is a much better term than a hoarder. But it's actually very interesting reading. Actually, I spent some time this afternoon looking at it before I brought it in to show him. And just to let you know, it was a 1% tax increase back then was $663,000. And the amount of our spending's gone up from, I think, 70 million to 250 million. But on the other hand, the budget itself was 170 pages then. That's the operating budget. And it's 340. We've exactly doubled the size of the budget since then in terms of physical reading. So I just want to point that out.
I remember that format, and if it's the same one I remember, the space for detail is about this big because each page is a table, and it's like less than a tweet of detail on every spending item. And the difference in format from those days to the description that we're now able to offer people is enormous. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Any other announcements? Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just one quick announcement. There's a neighborhood meeting for proposed development in Ward 2 happening this Thursday, December 9th at 5 p.m. And it is happening virtually, and it's regarding a proposed development on Collier Street. And so residents can find the link to register for the Zoom meeting, barrie.ca/proposed developments, and click on Ward 2. And again, that's Collier Street, and it's this Thursday, December 9th at 5 p.m.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. This Wednesday is another Walk With Me Wednesday. So at 7 a.m. I'll be at the Georgia Mall. And if you'd like to come for a walk and talk and get some steps in and connect with me, you can find me there. And my next announcement was an appreciation to the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter for the vigil that they posted today. I'm not sure if that's being spoken about, but please do if that's something dear to you. Today being December the 6th is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. There was a piece that was recorded, so if you missed the vigil happening live, you can find that through the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter and through their Facebook page as well. It highlighted women we've lost over the past year and had a lovely opportunity to reflect and think a bit about what we can do in our communities that support safety, action, and awareness. And I welcome you to view that if that's something you're interested in.
Thanks for mentioning that, Councillor Kungle. Yeah, the online vigil is up on their website, and thank you for bringing that to people's attention. Are there other announcements? Okay, I have a series of them. Of course, throughout the month of December, we'll start with 2 hours of free on-street downtown parking that is available to support local downtown businesses this holiday season. There is more detailed information about parking downtown on the city's website. New Year's Eve, we did have a release on this. We are doing something, and we are doing something a little different this year. We can't quite have the concert with thousands of people in front of City Hall, but that doesn't mean we can't celebrate it, and this is very cool. Our staff have come up with a plan to really have New Year's Eve celebrated in a number of different locations around our community. As the city gets larger, it's an opportunity for the City of Barrie's rec centers to take on that real center of the neighborhood role. And so we will have New Year's Eve programs at downtown, but also at Holly and the East Bayfield community centers to ring in the new year with family-friendly events, busker performances, and other programming. Downtown, we will have fireworks at 9 o'clock on New Year's Eve. Not at midnight, just the 9 o'clock show, so that families, everybody can enjoy them. You can enjoy them with the kids. There's a full list of what's going on, what's going to go on, and a very special presentation at Meridian Place, a new installation, which I think people are going to be just amazed by, starting in about a week's time. All of the information is at barrie.ca/happy holidays. Recognizing the importance of staying mentally and physically active, registration opens tomorrow. That's December 7th for the winter rec programs in person and virtually. Of course, we have a fee assistance program in Barrie called Rec Access that supports low-income families and individuals, so everybody's able to participate in city rec programs regardless of their financial status. You can learn more about that at barrie.ca/rec access. And the programming details and to sign up are play.barrie.ca, and soon to be the Apple Store and Google Play Store, as we heard tonight. As winter starts to arrive, it's painful to even say that, curbside collection can be challenging. A reminder to please place your bins out of the snow removal equipment path. If you want a real trip on what happens when bins are placed close to where the snowplows operate, watch the Rick Mercer report from about 5 years ago where he drove a Barrie plow and plowed in a few blue boxes. If you put them a little bit back from the road, please ensure they remain visible to collectors, but don't put them on top of the snowbanks because that is very difficult for the collectors to be able to empty. There's actually tips and tricks on this at barrie.ca. Also, several years ago, of course, we've constantly wanted to help our residents who had trouble clearing the end of their driveways when the snowplow comes by. there were a lot of different attempts to sort of see if we could do something through city services. And the best solution, I think, came forward, which is Snow Angels Canada. And that is a platform that is allowing residents who require assistance to connect with volunteers in their area who will reach out and help. And this has helped dozens of Barrie residents who can't clear the end of their driveway. So snowangelscanada.ca if you are in need of that help this coming winter. On-street overnight parking restrictions are now in effect until March 31st. A reminder, that means midnight till 7 a.m., except downtown, where the restriction period is 3 to 6 a.m. Barrie Police have launched their 2021 Community Safety Survey. They would like to hear the community's voice pertaining to safety in the city of Barrie. It's open until December 17th. That's at barriepolice.ca/survey. Nominations are now open for the 2021 Mayor's Innovation Awards. That's at investbarrie.ca/innovation awards. Those will be accepted until December 19th. Finally, Planning Committee will be meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The next General Committee and City Council meeting will be a double meeting, and the final one of 2021. That will be on December 13th. So next Monday is a double General Committee and City Council meeting. Planning Committee tomorrow night at 7. Bylaws, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 102 and 103.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 102 and 103. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of the bylaws? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Deputy Mayor Ward, confirmation bylaw.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this will be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 104.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill will be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 104, confirmation bylaw. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? None. That carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Aylwin, seconded by Councillor Kungle. We're adjourned at 8:13.